All right, and welcome to this special episode of Real Estate Fight Club. This is a series called What Would You Do?, where we discuss professional standards committee and ethics violations. With me
there you go.
today is Rachael Real from Rachael Real Real Estate in Chicago. Hey, Rachael.
Good morning, Jen. How are you?
I mean, we're going to talk about commissions today, and
right. It's timely. It's appropriate.
I love talking about commissions.
Commission compression is coming, so this is the perfect place and opportunity to talk about this particular scenario.
Yeah. So tell us what's going on.
So today we're going to talk about Article 16 as it relates to commissions. So Article 16, Standard of Practice 16-616 says realtors acting as subagents or buyer tenant representatives or brokers shall not use the terms of an offer to purchase or lease to attempt to modify the listing broker's offer of compensation to that agent, nor make the submission of an executed offer, to purchase or lease contingent on the listing broker's agreement to modify the offer of compensation.
This happens.
That's a giant sentence.
Way too much.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So we're going to talk about when is commission negotiable between a listing broker and a selling broker, and when is it not. So the question is there's a home in the MLS that I think my buyer client would love, but the commission being offered by the listing broker is lower than I want to be paid. In fact, it's so low that it won't cover the time or effort I put into representing the buyer throughout the transaction. I want to do the right thing. What can I do?
Buyer agreement.
I feel like we should have the old skit on SNL with Molly Shannon and I can't remember the other lady's name, where they do like the radio show and they talk just like that. Buyer agreement. We need a segment just on buyer agreements. I'm going to send it to you.
I agree. Yes,
where we just talk about that. So I think this is one of those scenarios where clearly a buyer agency agreement is necessary. I mean, they're necessary in every scenario, really. But this answers the question in 27 different ways right there.
Right.
So if this was you, what would you do? So I'm going to ask you this first. What would you do
if
you were this agent?
We actually did a podcast on this.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just go back. So the context is that the Code of Ethics, whatever letter B over the
16-16
says that it can't be part of the negotiation of the contract, right? So when you have a buyer client that puts like an offer on the house and the seller comes back and says, well, if you reduce your commission to this, then you then the buyer can have it, right? Like that
right.
can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funky line. So Standard of Practice 3-3 authorizes listing brokers and cooperating brokers to come to an agreement to change cooperative compensation. Okay. And that can happen before a property is shown, after showing, or even after an offer is compensated or accepted. What that you can't
sucks because you are showing it under. I
agree.
Like if I go to work,
sketchy.
Yeah, if you hire me
right.
and we're saying, okay,
right.
here's the work I'm going to do, here's the compensation, and then I'm like done with the work, and you're going to be like,
right,
well,
can we renegotiate your contract? Well, yeah, my answer is going to be hell no.
It's going to be no, but like then
right.
then you're like, well, then we're not going to do then I'm not going to pay you or whatever, which is
crazy. Right. Although you can't say we're not going to pay you. It just says this gives you our Standard of Practice 3-3 gives you the ability to say, yes, it's okay to do that. Doesn't mean you have to do it. Doesn't mean that you're going to do it. It just says, yes, you're allowed to renegotiate.
Yeah, but how many
if both parties are on the same side and on the same page.
Okay.
So for instance, you get an offer together, you got two people that are $2,000 apart, let's just say for rough numbers, right? Neither party is asking the other party to renegotiate their commission. Okay. But both parties say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to throw $1,000 into this. Now don't freak out because we're not talking about
I'm about to freak out.
You're going to freak out, right? But no, this is for an example purpose. Both parties say, hey, you know what? I'll agree to drop my commission by, X percent or $1,000, whatever it might be, in order to get this to come together. And between the two agents, they agree that, yeah, we're willing to do that. Nobody's saying my offer is contingent upon you only doing this. And if you don't do it, we're going to walk. These are two people saying, yes, we agree that we will do that in the interest of keeping the contract together. Now, is it something I'm going to do, something you're going to do? Probably
Fuck
not.
that. Don't do
Fuck
it.
no.
Look, if you're going to walk away
But
from
this is a good example of just of the code allowing two people to do that.
okay.
So they're just saying you can't hold one person over the other and say, I'm going to cancel this unless you pay me this.
Yeah,
and
but
that
they do.
happens.
So
They do. It happens.
in the scenario you just read, and by the way, if people want to read it, I will drop it in jennifermertlin.com/vault under a folder for this episode. But in this example, the buyer wants to see a property where the commission
Right.
that's being offered by the seller is less than the buyer agent's commission. I think if you have, like in our case, we will have a buyer's agreement and it will say that, and it will cover, we will have talked about this.
You
So
will
then I'll,
right. The buyer agency agreement fixes everything here, because
Yeah.
you can go back to that and go, hey, you know what? I know this property is offering X, but in our buyer agency agreement here, we discussed the fact that I work for Y. So in order for me to move forward and show you this property, assuming that you might like it and write an offer on it, in order for me to be paid what we agreed that I would be paid, there's a difference of Z here.
there's a
So
difference. And
you're
there's a
gonna have-
couple
you're
of
gonna have to
ways you
come
can
up with that
handle
difference.
that. Well, there's a couple of
Yep.
ways you can handle it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you don't have a buyer agreement, I mean, I think you've got,
Just quit.
yeah,
Just
no. You're so
Just
mean.
quit. I know. I'm in a mood today.
I think you have to have the conversation, right, with the buyer. You can still fix it, but I think you're pretty, I mean, I also think that, you're obligated to show it. And if they
You are
want
100% obligated to show it. You're working as a fiduciary for your client, and you're looking out for your client's best interests. And if this property that offers Y instead of X for cooperative compensation is something that is a good fit for your client and they want to see it, you have to show it to them. So
yeah, and I think it's just a hard lesson to learn.
Right. If it's a minuscule difference, have I gone after a buyer and said, hey, this only, I have a shortage of $350 here between the two. Are you going to pay that? No, I've not done that. I mean, if it was a huge, significant difference, then maybe that would be a different story. But I have not gone after a client and said, you know what, they're only offering to pay X. I haven't done that.
Yeah.
Now, I have buyer agency agreements in place that would allow me to do that.
Right. You can
And
always
again,
have the option not to if you don't want to, but
Absolutely. But at least you have that in writing and you've had the conversation with your client on the front end before you've looked at houses,
right.
so that you know what that means.
Exactly.
So those are your couple of answers. You can renegotiate that compensation. If you call that agent and say, hey, you know what, you're offering X, I typically work for Y. I would like to know if your seller would agree to increase that compensation for me to continue to work, and show your home. If the seller says no, then the agents can work together and say, okay, well, maybe I'll give you X or whatever it might be. There's nothing that says they can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Total BS.
I knew you'd love it. Right.
Is this a good time to take a break?
This is the perfect time to take a break.
I want to tell you about two of our favorite marketing partners. One, of course, is Monica Weekly's Ghost Poster. And so what she does, this is free, especially for our Real Estate Fight Club listeners. They go to ghostposter.com, spelled GHOSTPOSTR, no E.com. Enter in Fight Club. It's free. She sends you something to post every day. So you're supposed to be posting. You don't do it. This will help you do it. You can literally copy and paste it. And also my number one marketing tool right now is Pipeline Pro Tools. So they are a marketing engine. They create ads for me that I place for free on Craigslist and Facebook. And you can go and get a demo to see how many of those you would need to place in order to get the amount of deals and transactions you want. You go to pipelineproTools.com/Fight Club, get a demo. They will give you my playbook for free, regardless if you use their service or not. All right, Rachel. So what do you think? What happened?
Well, I think so you need a freaking buyer's agreement. Let's just start with that. Buyer's agreement. You need one. Get it,
buyer's
have it,
agreement.
Learn it, love it. Right. Talk about it. The whole point of this is to not have a purchase offer or a contract held hostage by one agent over another when there's a disagreement with that.
Yeah.
So that is the whole point of this. Again, the articles allow you to negotiate that if you choose. You don't have to. It doesn't mean that you need to. It's not requiring you to. It's just saying we're not going to prohibit you from engaging in negotiating your commissions. You just can't use that leverage from one over the other to hold that hostage. Say, hey, you know what? I know we wrote this offer. I know
but
we
the
signed
problem
this contract, but
is,
you're only going to pay me X. So you know what? Now I'm going to cancel it.
right.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
But
And
okay,
if
so
it does, there's going to be probably some repercussions to that.
but the problem is that let's say the seller is the one that's like holding it hostage, right? They're not bound by the code of ethics. The agent's
they're
like,
not.
I told them they can't do that. They're doing it anyway.
Who's doing what? The sellers?
The
holding it
seller's like,
hostage?
we're not going to
Well,
take.
well, think about it. The seller in their listing agreement already arranged for that cooperative, that whole compensation. They said,
Right.
I'm listing my property with you, listing broker, and this is what I'm going to pay you.
Okay.
And then in your listing agreement, and I would assume maybe yours is probably similar. In your listing agreement, it's got, here's the whole compensation we're paying you,
Right.
and here's how it's broken down between the two sides.
Yes. And then
So
they're going to say, I changed my mind, or they're going to, here's what has happened before. They'll be like, well, I can't pay the commission we agreed on because this offer's too low. Then I literally say, it's not a problem. Let's go find another buyer.
Right. We find another buyer.
And that's
it's
it.
up to you personally if you want to take that opportunity then to renegotiate your commission with your seller. But in my opinion, if you are sitting in a listing appointment with your seller, you're going over all of this and you're providing them with a net sheet, there should be no surprise, and that shouldn't be a conversation that you're going to be having later.
Right. It's just based on the offers that they get, right? Like how many sellers like list their house, like, well, not right now today, but
right. I know in a normal market,
they'll list their house overpriced, and then they'll be mad when they get an offer based on what you said, that the market was more likely to produce an offer at X, right?
Well,
and they get that offer.
Right. And that's where, I mean, call me crazy, but I do net sheets at several different price points and I have them initial them. Here's the net sheet that I did at this price point, and your price point. So that no matter what, I have record of the fact that we talked about this. We talked about this price point that you might not be happy about, but here's what it is. Here's what you're going to walk away with at the brokerage fee that we've agreed to on the listing agreement.
Right.
And you've initialed the fact that you've seen it, you recognize that we talked about it.
Well, and quite frankly, they don't have to accept an offer. Like they don't have to.
No, but that's where it comes into screening your clients to make sure that they're serious about selling. Because if we have a candid conversation and I say your property is worth this is what I expect it to sell for, but you think it's going to be 30,000 higher, and then we get to a point where we get an offer based on the price range where I think we're supposed to be, or right where the sweet spot is, and you decide not to sell, I probably as a listing agent want to know that long before we get to that point.
Yeah. So
if we see an offer at this price, right, are you going to just say no and walk away? Because if you are, I don't think I might not be the right fit for you, because I don't want to do all this work and then just I decided to change my mind. Right.
So like, I think that brings to a point is that like you as the listing agent, you don't have to take every listing. Like just because somebody wants to list with you, you can just decide that they're probably not a good fit if they want to list it too high, or if they have some unreasonable, expectations of occupancy or like whatever it is. Right.
Right. If you feel like, hey, you know what, you're giving me a Chevy Cavalier to sell, but you want a Lexus price on it.
I mean, what color is the Cavalier?
It's purple.
I like it. Does it have Lambo doors?
Right. You know what I mean, though. There's a market appropriate price for everything. And if you're asking me to sell a Cavalier, a Corolla, whatever it is, at the price of a Lexus, as much as I would love to do that for you, I don't think I can.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen. So I don't want to set the expectation that, hey, maybe it'll happen. Yeah. When in fact it probably isn't going to happen.
Yeah. So net sheets, I'll go ahead and put our net sheet in the vault also. So jennifermertlin.com/vault. Do you want to add yours? The one you use?
The one I use is actually through a local title company. So Chicago Title has an app that's wonderful. If anybody's in the Chicago market, Chicago Title app is wonderful. You plug everything in, you can save your defaults for whatever your brokerage fees are. You can select, it drops it down by city, state, county, transfer taxes, the whole kit and caboodle. So they're very nice. You can email it, scan it, send it, text it right from your phone, which is great too. So if you're sitting in an appointment with a seller and they go, well, what am I going to make if I get an offer at this? let me enter 5 fields and I
Yeah.
can text it to you right now. So
Yeah. A lot of title companies are doing that now. So
yes.
it's
Yeah.
good. Well, Rachel, if you have any final thoughts,
Don't hold people hostage with your negotiations of commissions.
it's the only
Just
way to get
saying.
what you want, Rachel.
Right. Yeah. And it's not the right way. I'm just going to say it.
It's not the right way. Well, if people have a referral for you in Chicago, or they have a question for you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way to reach me is by cell phone at 630-542-8688 or via email at rreal@dealwithreal.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Jen.
Bye.